Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. Tonight's episode, the Two Xtreme Horror Show. I'm covering with RDV tonight a late 1980s gem, a classic slasher film called Intruder, where some people from a grocery store in the middle of the night are getting whacked off by a mysterious stranger. It's as I say in the description, it's very eye-opening. Hopefully you're going to get the memo after listening to this and watch this film because it's tremendous. It's way above average in the slasher category. It's a really, really fun film, and it's one that actually wasn't very popular at the time, but the Sam Raimi people were involved in it. Even Bruce Campbell has a cameo allegedly at the end of it, but something that we've not really covered, or it's been missed by the 80s genre, and we like to cover those kinds of things here on the Two Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. With me, I have the real RDV from the great Midwest. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Ready to shop smart.
Shop that's smart. Yeah, so RDV, I think one of the interesting things about the Xtreme Movie Show in general is that our basis of movies is the 1980s. That's where I grew up. You have a fondness for it. A lot of people that listen to us do as well, whether they're young or they're old. And despite our global influence, I have to sit there and say, personally speaking, I have many a fond, or I should say, a memory of working in a grocery store, because that's how I worked my way through college, through med school. I was also a stripper, but that's another story. And all I got to say is what's really good about this film are a couple things. One, it takes its sweet-ass time until the kills really start happening. So it really builds up the suspense. But then when you get them, they start coming at you. The kills are above average in their creativity level. And two, by this time in the late 80s, anybody that likes horror films and slasher films, you're usually rooting for the people to get whacked because you hate them so damn much. But in here, the teenagers, early college age kids, the people that are getting killed off, they're not complete jerks. You don't hate them. They're just sort of there, but they're a step or two above most of the teenagers that we actually have in most slasher films. So what was your initial thoughts, RDV? Yo, Ed.
When I watched this back when I watched this probably was in my late teens.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched Maniac Cop. So I was like, oh. So I was like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. I'm like, okay. And I admit, I was like, okay, Bruce Campbell is not even in this movie until like the very, very end. But other than that, if I took apart from being my kind of like a disappointment in the movie for doing that, it's a solid movie. And like I said, it's like, just like you, I worked in a grocery store. That compactor scene in this movie is just like, holy crap. And like I said, anytime I'm anywhere where they have cardboard baler, I just think about that. It's like, wow, because everything's all. Of course, I didn't start working until in grocery stores till like 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So they OSHA made everything. Nothing's no longer manual anymore. Everything's automatic. As a safety law functions, and so you can't kill anybody with that. I mean, there are ways. I mean, yes, you can disable the security thing by putting a magnet up. So we've learned that. Things you do when you're working back in the warehouse. You clearly learn how to do stuff. But literally, I've been in little grocery stores like this, and I always thought like this movie should have took place like in Florida, and it should instead of being it should be like in a 7-Eleven. It's like,
you bring up a really good point, and here's the thing about 80s slasher films, or just 80s films in general. Part of it, when we talk about the themes and the characters, another big part of it's the music and how the writing is just, even for bad films of that time, a lot better than most films today. Is when you watch this, it was filmed in near downtown LA, believe it or not. It does feel, because it's late at night, and the way that it's shot, it does feel like it's in Florida or somewhere in the South, because it's at night. The ladies are going out and grabbing carts and all that. You've got an ex-boyfriend who's bad news that might be the killer. I mean, it's 10 Little Indians, basically. It's Hitchcock's greatest film that he never had, aside from The Ninth Grade with Johnny Depp. But what I agree with you about that is this. When you take a look at films, you go, wow, that's exactly what it was like in the 80s. So when you see the grocery store and you see some of the bad non-fluorescent lighting from like the 50s and 60s, and the fact that it was shot on film and it's super low budget, you almost feel like you're walking in there, especially if you're watching these Blu-ray Shout Factory type of DVD releases. And it's incredible because you can then really take in the fashion choices people make. And this isn't the type of movie that's going to have like a lot of, pop music that was really hot in the 80s. And we go, oh, well, the movie sucked, but the soundtrack was good, so therefore it was somewhat enjoyable. No, this movie ratchets it up the dread level a little bit while you're watching it. People are locked inside overnight, which is how it was back then. And yeah, like I say, they actually treat you as a viewer of this film as something not stupid, which again is a theme that we've talked about before with 80s films. You don't treat the kids that are watching it or the people that they're dumb, and you invest a little bit in the characters, and then you just give them a basic setup and let it unfold. So yeah, these people find out that from their two bosses, I mean, there's co-owners, one's got 51%, the other one's got 49%, that their store is going to close. And the guy understands that everyone's upset, but offers to give them a bonus and all that. So it's one of those situations where you're like, this boss is not being a complete jerk, because in today's world, you'd get riffed really quick. You wouldn't even get that. So I'm looking at this going, wow, people actually did try a little bit back then and had a better relationship, even in what would seem like a menial job.
I want to say that when I did a night shift cruise with some of this when I did work in the grocery store, and you get that one assistant manager who is like not that much older than you are,
Exactly.
and he's just like you. He's like, we're stuck here, so let's just make sure we get everything done. We're fine. Everybody does our work. He's cool. Obviously, retail, you're always stuck with like 9 out of 10 managers are just complete dicks. You get that one, it's like great, and then they leave to go to another store because they need them at the other store over there. So they purposely move them away. You're like, no fun. You're for you guys. But I want to say overall, this movie, before we really dive deep into it, it's like whenever I watch anything from the 80s, and I know people say like I love the 80s. I like the fact that I like looking at stuff even from the early 90s. There's a lot of stuff I've never experienced because I really I was born in 85, so everything changes. I've noticed that too, especially around my within like 10 years. There's stuff around my neighborhood's just gone. So getting to see stuff that even Rob, you lived, it's like it's no big deal. For me, it's like I've never seen that before, and I just look in the aspects features like the aisles and just like the cereal, like this. I don't have the cereal. We have these other weird stuff now, but you had some cool stuff. But
yeah, there's always a tremendous amount of staging in retail that goes on. So when you watch a commercial or anything on TV, you have people that go through hundreds of models and whatnot to come in there. And, and here it looks kind of realistic. Hey, oh, by the way, RDVO got a special guest. Hey, look at this, a special guest that I decided to go ahead and get for Intruder here tonight on the Too Extreme Horror Show. I have one of the managers of the movie Intruder with us tonight. He decided he'd give us a minute or two of his time here because he's got a few notes he needs to take here before he goes back to store. It's Mr. Bill Roberts. Good evening, Mr. Roberts. How are you?
Well, how do you do? I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here. You made a note about
Mr. Roberts,
I'm actually the only sole owner now. Sadly, my coworker was killed by that gin girl, and what was his name? Craig, her ex. It's ridiculous.
Mr. Roberts, is it true that you hear the bury the hatchet? Bygones be bygones.
I don't know what you mean. Not quite sure.
I heard it was a killing spree over there, and there's just so much
yeah,
a lot of hard feelings and emotions just being shared about that store. And is it true that you love the store?
Oh, I'm just crazy about it. But sadly that night, I remember it well. I tried to fight off that Craig kid. I don't know how I survived. He hit me with a hammer, then he shot me. No, he stabbed me. I now remember. It was a sad night, and I tried to protect that gin girl, but then I realized she was in on it too. It was insane. I always suspected them. I'd go in the back room, find them smoking that wacky tobacco, and it was sad indeed.
So how are prices? Are you still slashing them?
No. The store is fully operational again. We have a new staff. I sadly had to get another co-owner. 51% again. Might have to do something about that. Buy him out. I mean, of course.
Well, Mr. Roberts, I would like to ask you, because as we're watching the movie Intruder, it becomes very clear to me that, halfway through it, nothing's really happened, and then a lot of bad things seem to happen if the police reports are to be believed. How would you describe the nature of your relationships with your overnight stock crew?
Oh, well, I tried. At our store, we try to make it like family. Everybody there's family. Try to treat them right. They treat me right. It was such a shame to be losing the store in that moment. I made it my life. I devoted everything to it. And the fact that it was going to be gone, it was heartbreaking. But sadly, there is a good side to this. The store is now fully mine. It's all in operation. It's truly a great day. Well, today is. Not when that happened, obviously.
Is there any truth that your coworker, or I guess your co-owner, the late Randy, is it true that you guys did not get along?
No. We got along fine.
One would say that maybe you had it out for him.
That is unfounded. How could you suggest a thing like that?
And someone also would imply that it drove you nuts. Maybe even a little bit crazy.
Let me tell you something, sir. I've put my life into that store, and that is the only thing that I have. And I would not do anything to harm the staff or any owner of that establishment.
I don't know, Rob. You got some questions for this guy? He seems a little bit.
No, I think. I just, as long as he's cutting right through the heart of the matter, I'm glad we were able to get his viewpoints on what happened on that one awful night where 8 people died, it appears. But Mr. Roberts, let me say thank you for taking a few moments to join us here on the Xtreme Movie Show. Whenever we cover the 80s and other special events too, it's always nice when we get somebody to come on. Here in the Pinellas Palace, we have lots of grocery stores and a lot of overnight workers. A lot of weird stuff happens. So I appreciate you taking the time out. So any last things you'd like to say, Mr. Roberts, before we call it a night?
Nothing much. Just be careful when watching the all too true security footage that we have of every single killing there. I went over it like 15 times. It was insane, but be careful. You don't want to toss your cookies or anything, but
all right.
I wish you luck.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Roberts, for showing up. I certainly did it. I hate the fact that you're roboting out on me here too, but I think that's Professor Pixel on the other line looking to join us here too. So just send an Xtreme message next time, Mr. Roberts, and we'll have you on again. Thank you and good night. RDV, I can't wait till Pixel gets on. He won't believe that Mr. Roberts from Intruder got interviewed tonight. It's another special interview. You never know what you get here on the
Ladies and gentlemen, what a killer interview we just had. It really slayed me. But seriously, talking about this movie, though. Written by Scott Spiegel, who also co-wrote with Sam Raimi, The Evil Dead 2. It said he also directed... what was the other movie I was just going to... He just did actually a good movie. Just 1 second. You don't have your notes up, bro? Okay. Well, let's just say, maybe if you had the heart of a lion, maybe you'd know it, because he directed Lionheart, The Quick and the Dead, from Dusk to Dawn 2.
Our Lionheart, our JCVD Lionheart. There you go.
Yeah,
all right, so let's get back on track here.
Well, I take it back. He didn't co-wrote it. He wrote most of it with Sam Raimi. He even got a little part in Hostel. So I said Scott Spiegel is one of the great stuff. Oh, so we still got Bill Roberts here. I'm not sure it's about Pixel. Bill Roberts. Wait.
He's no. I've got him on hold till I dump him.
Are you the son of Sam or the son of Bill?
So, Oh God! All right, let's bring the focus back for people that just joined us. We had Bill Roberts from the movie Intruder join us tonight. All right, so back to the movie RDV. We were talking about how this 1989 movie has Sam Raimi's footprints all over it, if you will, fingerprints. Let's say his movie Je ne sais quoi, whatever. It's one of those movies that actually flew under the radar. Not a lot of people knew about it. It had been forever since I saw it, and I didn't even see it in the theaters. So when I rewatched it recently, I went, yeah, I'd forgotten that this was one of those movies that, you know, as a slasher film, you're not going, okay, it's a Freddy Jason movie where you're tired and you don't like the characters, and you know, you think the franchise kind of is dumb and stupid, and you're laughing and giggling every time somebody's throat gets slashed. This movie actually does do a good job of, like I say, making you go, hey, whether or not the fact these kids are kind of young and are going through like late teenage, late high school, early college type situations. The point you mentioned before we started interviewing Bill Roberts, I think is a good one, where you'd have a manager that wasn't too much older than you, and you go, hey, wait a minute, being a manager at a grocery store back then in the 80s where you're making, say, 2-3 times minimum wage was, you know, quite an interesting stick that they would wave in front of you, because somebody's got to do it, and most of those jobs would leave. But you know, back then you got tipped a lot of money if you were a bag boy. Minimum wage is super low. People tip like crazy, so you could make some decent money in a grocery store, and you still can't say, although it's still a little bit more corporatized. We have Publix here in Florida, which is a big grocery chain, private, and they know how to do what they're doing. But even by grocery standards, Publix has really fallen by the wayside. And it's really dropped down, like you've seen with other major companies like a Walmart or Target and so on. I see Professor Pixel join us. Pixel, we had on the other line Mr. Roberts from Intruder 1989 join us. So we just talked for a couple minutes. He gave us his side of the story from the police reports and all that. So let me ask you, Pixel, as we're talking about Intruder here on the Too Extreme Horror Show, one of the things that RDV brought up before our interview was this: when you watch 80s films, you get certain themes like Sam Raimi. You know, when you're watching a Sam Raimi type film, and I know you're a big fan of The Evil Dead. What did you think of this film in general? And did you like it? Did you hate it? What was good about it? Well, give us your initial thoughts.
It wasn't good. It really wasn't good. I know Sam Raimi's
You didn't like it?
But it's not
Blasphemy! Get him out of
I
here.
didn't like it. No, I didn't like
You're
it.
gone.
At all.
You're canceled. Bye.
See, the fact is,
Oh, okay.
that
You did not like it because
I don't know. I just found
You sit on the throne of lies.
the killer was weak, absolutely, and I don't know why you interviewed a killer. That's kind of
Well, he obviously survived. He that weak, is he? He slayed that night and survived. He took quite a beating, didn't you? So
the movie just I didn't enjoy anything about it. You mentioned earlier, it's not that we hate the characters, we don't care about the characters. There's no reason to care. It's sad to see him die in a way. I mean, in the same way you'd see somebody on the street die. And the thing was, it took so dang long to get to a kill that it wasn't even like a pure gore flick, which would be like, okay, this is the kind of movie it is. Nope. It decided, okay, let's spend about 45 minutes trying to add some human element to it. And then nothing. You know, the one romantic interest other than Craig for, what was her name? Jennifer.
yes.
He just dies like 10 minutes after kissing her, and that's it. There's no shock as in, oh man, a love opportunity lost. And then at the end, just for them to seemingly defeat the killer, the police come and arrest the kids. It's just you sit there, and then
I kind of like that. It's
Well,
kind of cynical, isn't it?
As a person who's watched many horror films, do you think that you're supposed to ever care about the characters that get killed? I would say no. The slashers, the Jason movies, no. The only person you're supposed to care about is the final girl, the final person. Everyone else, you're just there to watch them get killed. That's all it is. So
I don't
Well,
look at it
honestly,
like that.
both points are really valid because with the slasher genre, really, especially since Halloween was super popular in the late 70s, that's what the 80s turned into, the death of the smart slasher film. And we've covered some small slasher films too, RDV, way back in the day, specifically one with Rachel Ward in it that was pretty good.
Night
And,
School.
you know, Night School, exactly. But then the 80s quickly devolved into a body count. So Pick's almost surprised you're saying that because the way you're describing the fact that it took forever for them to start killing and the fact you didn't care about that. I was simply pointing out that, hey, we don't hate these characters. That's a plus in terms of 80s slasher films. And the fact that it had a bit of a different ending, I thought was pretty good too. But it seems like you didn't like that.
You mean the ending that ended on, okay, you're under arrest? No, that it's a bloodbath in there. And then it cuts to her face and she just screams and it goes into her mouth and that's the end.
Pixel, if they were, I gotta ask them because this is basically written by the Evil Dead people company. People that does. If this is before Evil Dead 2, also. If they would have introduced comedy like they did in Evil Dead 2, would you enjoyed it more? Are you just a snob who wants comedy because you're used to the Evil Dead 2?
No, I didn't consider it like an Evil Dead movie at all. I considered I was seriously.
Is it not true that you went in thinking that the main star was going to be Bruce Campbell, and that's why you're so salty?
No, I knew it said also special appearance by, so I expected him to have like a small bit in it, but Sam Raimi had top billing in the movie too on any poster you looked at. He's in it for a total of 10 minutes. It's ridiculous.
That's just the marketing of it because back then with something that would get produced later on when they would go to re-release it on VHS or then later on DVD transfer, if something got hot and popular, they would of course put some like Sam Raimi's name at the top to get the eyes involved as well as Bruce Campbell. And Bruce Campbell, even though people were fans of Evil Dead on the cult level, was not huge mainstream back in the mid to late 80s. So to your point, I understand why that happened, but I guess the question is, do you think that that's allowing you to kind of look through this film a little bit, not as positive as you could because you feel triggered because they screwed you on that? No? Okay.
No, because if it was a good movie, I wouldn't have cared. I'd have been like, okay. I mean, they didn't get the shining spot, but the movie I didn't enjoy it. I was sitting through it. It was a chore to watch.
We're being told by Ed Brewer, Pixel would make a pretty good Peter Parker in the Experiment movie.
Well, okay. Hey, here's the thing on the Xtreme Movie Show: we don't have to like everything that we watch, and God knows that I'm the guy that doesn't like anything a lot of times. But we like to focus on something strange. Well, we like to focus on the extreme angles of certain movies too. Here, this movie was definitely different than your typical slasher film. I think overall, for my final thoughts, above average slasher film. Much better than just background, the ways to put on it. Something you can sit down and watch and kind of do it. And I think that's a testament to the people that are involved in it. The fact that even though it was low budget, they still wanted to have a finished product and it just didn't feel like it was just slapped together at the last minute. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think the craft wise it was done good enough where I was going, wow, this isn't your typical Friday the 13th part 47. So to me, I appreciated that. If you like genre stuff, you like horror, check it out. I definitely think it's worth going. Pixel will come to you last for final thoughts because you joined us last after the Bill Roberts interview. So let me go to you, RDV. Any final thoughts on this movie and 80 slashers in general?
Oh, let's say this movie. A little people don't realize this actually had a positive, reaction to the film when it first came out. A lot of people, I guess, enjoyed it. I don't know what your take is, if you liked it or your experience. People saying like, "Oh, I really love this movie," but the guy who wrote it, Scott Spiegel, this was his first directing debut, and the reason they picked him up because he was working in Michigan. He had experience with working the Super 8 video cameras and film and some of that. Mm-hmm. They got him to write this short little story, which they said was inspired by Halloween. That's why you're getting like Halloween kills. Halloween is another movie. I agree with Pixel, and for a big franchise it is, how popular it is. It's popular because all they're doing is just kill after kill. They up the killing. That's what's popular. And so if this would have had girls with their boobs out, I think it would have been a much more cult following. Because obviously this was kind of like a PG Halloween movie. You had the girl being chased by the killer. You know, she's the last one, the final girl. You know, and no one believes you. You know, well, what's cool about this, because we know this is before Evil Dead 2, but Sam Raimi be involved in this. Even Dan Hicks, who's been in a lot of Sam Raimi's movies, including Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, all this. He's always in there. Renee Estevez, the youngest daughter of Martin Sheen, Amelia Estevez's sister.
The other Estevez, yes.
Yes, was in this movie. A lot of people overlook the fact they don't really look at the name because she doesn't have billing on the poster, so they don't even recognize her. She was in this. She played Linda. But guess what? Who also the name Linda comes into? Evil Dead franchise. So there's small little Easter eggs in this movie throughout. You know, there are references to other movies, the people he worked with. Like I said, it's $100,000 budget. Or I guess maybe now somebody Wikipedia is saying 130,000, but I have seen most people say 100,000. I think the director's cut had a bigger budget or whatever. But anyway, though, like I said, this is what you got. The same guy who directed Evil Dead 2, co-wrote the screenplay for this. So as much as you hate this movie and you love Evil Dead 2, I think it's because there's not comedy in it. If there would have been comedy in this, I think you would have enjoyed it more because Evil Dead 2 was slapstick. This was kind of like this is like basically glorifying the killing without having a happy ending.
They took so dang long to get to the killing, though, that you're just at that point you're like, oh, it's finally happening.
Well, Evil Dead did the same thing. The first original Evil Dead took a while to get to the first killing.
Here's the thing, though. When we watch the Evil Dead, their first killing is by a tree raping a girl, pretty much, and that's you're kind of freaked out by that.
It's still like 20 minutes into the movie, though.
This first kill was the guy holding a knife after standing in the shadows, and then going down watermelon. Okay,
let it be known that Pixel wants more gore / he wants better kills for America. 2021, let's make it great again with more kills.
Let's make killing great again.
I've never met a millennial in my life with such a high level of bloodlust.
Right?
I mean, it's insatiable. I mean,
it makes sense. They created a monster.
Look, I don't condone what Bill Roberts may have done in this film. I appreciate the fact that, again, he took some time out for us to interview him. As journalists, we like to hear both sides of the story here, and with that time, that's great. But yeah, Pixel, I guess I'm surprised ultimately by your feeling about this movie, not caring for it. I understand your reasons, and that's just interesting to note. Any quick final thoughts, Pixel, before we wrap it up?
I just wish I liked the movie. I do, because I like to like things. A lot of the times I'm the one that's on the other side of the fence, but now I really didn't care about it, and by the end, that end didn't help. So
more blood, guts, gore, and boobs. Basically the 3 Bs and all that. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. We'll maybe get some Italian horror coming up here to really discuss you, and we'll get that here on the Xtreme Movie Show. All right, guys, thanks for showing up. Pixel, thanks for showing up. And like I said, I know we only had 3 spots, and you came in late, but also Mr. Roberts for joining. Thank you for that as well. RDB, thank you for joining as well. As always, guys, appreciate you listening here on the 2 Xtreme Movie Show. For RDB, Professor Pixel, myself, Rob, just have a good night. Stay extreme. Take care, guys.
Enjoy your late night shift at the grocery store.
So long.
Clean up on aisle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm just